ordinance. Okay, this ordinance, I believe, is the key, the whole accountability key to us getting the changes that we want to see in our community. Now, I have been a South Shore resident for practically my whole life. I've seen the good, I've seen the bad, I've seen the ugly. I've always tried to do more in my community to make it a better community for myself, my families, and the generations that are to come. I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. And I just want to be able to, when I saw this, I think it's a perfect fit because of the things that I've already been doing and working in the community and connecting in the community. I see this as just a better way to get the results that we want. We're not going to be able to do this alone. We're not going to be able to achieve.
Janice, that's your time.
Is that?
Yeah, sorry. Okay, it's all right. It happens.
All right.
All right, Mr. Bryant, you're up next, and then Mr. Carrington will explain what's happening with you in a moment.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony David Bryant. I apologize for being late. I am at the City Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, so we have a meeting tonight. I'm running for this office because community input matters to me. A lot of the work I've been doing over the past 14 years has been community oriented, working with some of our community organizations, our centers, as well as government officials and other non-for-profits. Some of the work I am currently doing is violence prevention, as well as domestic violence, workforce development, behavioral health, early childhood education. I'm running because our community needs to have a seat at the decision-making table when it comes to deciding what our police policies are, their practices, as well as their strategies. I've done some work over the past couple of years with State Representative Lamont Robinson's office, working with organizations like Sunshine Ministry, Project Hood, and Friends Health, as well as countless other organizations that reside in the district, as well as the 20th Ward, as well as in South Shore. I'm running as a slate with Jim Blissitt, as well as Anna. With this ordinance, it's about working together, not only with our fellow candidates, as well as other district councils, but also with the community. So with that being said, I think it's highly important that we are focusing on what our community needs.
That's your time, sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Carrington, we're giving everyone a minute and a half to explain who they are a little bit and why they are after this position. We'll start with you now. I'm unmuting you.
Good evening. My name is Craig T. Carrington. I just left another speaking engagement. That's why I'm running behind schedule. My name is Craig T. Carrington. I'm a lifelong resident of the 3rd Police District. In fact, I'm a 5th generation Chicagoan who have resided in the district. The last event I just left, one of the questions was asked, why are you running for this office? And I didn't have to think about it. There was no hesitation. Back in September 16th in 2004, my sister, Kareem Manuel, and my 2 nephews and my niece, Sherelle Anthony and Randy, were beat up by the 3rd District Police on 72nd and Woodlawn at an event that I coordinated. Can you imagine that? A Hands Across the Community event in conjunction with Alderman Harrison office, Nazarene Church right there on 72nd, and Bray Temple right there on 72nd, 71st at Cottage Grove, and the 3rd District Police. So my sister, who never ever been in a squad car, never been handcuffed, never been arrested, was the victim of this. My nieces and nephew were all 13, 14, 15, respectively, 89, 90 pounds. And my nephew got knocked out by the police once he was trying to let the police know that my niece, his sister, was not the boy that they was looking for. This was so bad that Mary Mitchell, columnist Mary Mitchell, wrote an article about it. That is why I'm running for this.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carrington. That's your time.
Okay.
All right. So let's get started with the rest of the questions. Some of you pointed out that you are on the same ticket with one another, ECPS. One of the questions is, what is the difference between the three of you if you all align with the same organization? What if the citizens decided to put in place Mr. Carrington and then Janice Jones, and there was only one position left open for an ECPS member? Which one of you should it be? I'll start with Mr. Blissitt.
Great question. And I want to be, how much time do we have, by the way? Okay, yeah, I want to be clear. Me, Anthony, and Anna, we came together while on the campaign trail. You know, I think we came together around the idea of, hey, we're going to work as a council moving forward. So teamwork is at the front of the bus. And we're going to start right now through collaboration. So with that, you know, if someone else is more fortunate than myself, Anna, or Anthony, you know, I would love to see Anthony as a part of this council. I think Anthony could be just an amazing connector for many of the organizations existing throughout the district. I think we're seeing a lot of feedback from people who are feeling left out of the funding race. A lot of really local grassroots organizations doing great work, but they don't know, who's cutting the private check, or they don't have the money to buy the ticket to the expensive ball, right? So I think someone like Anthony, you know, we will hold you to connecting our grassroots movements, our block clubs to funding sources. So for that reason, I would support Anthony if I'm not fortunate myself. Yeah.
Anna, same question for you.
I'm muted. Okay. Yes. So we met through, ECPS. ECPS stands for, empowering, community for public safety. And immediately we realized that we are sharing so many values, right? So, and we saw this, initiative as the most, democratic police, accountability structure that, exists, in the whole, country, right? So furthermore, I think strongly believe that we have, complementary skills, like all, of us three like to create, a really good team. I'm the person who is more, data focused, analysis, reports and stuff like that. Why my two, colleagues are more front facing, outreach, community, supports, and they already have plethora of, experience, in that field, right? So I think therefore, and just simply we have a great, communication, in between, each other, and we support, each other. And most importantly, we have the same beliefs about, ECPS, ordinance, and the same, strategies how to go, about this position. So that's it. I don't hear you. You are muted.
Oh, yes, thank you. All right, Mr. Carrington, different question, but in the same vein, since it appears you would be running as an independent, what would you offer, since the other candidates are expressing that they offer kind of a solidarity? What would you be offering different?
As far as me running, or as far as me supporting anyone?
No, because since you're not running as part of ECPS, I think we're looking at you and Janice as independents. So what would you be offering different than the people that are running under the same ticket? Am I frozen? Or is he frozen? I think he's frozen. All right, we'll switch to Janice for the moment. Janice, I think Mr. Carrington may be frozen. Oh, no, he's back.
He was just me. The symbol says he's muted.
That's weird because he was talking here.
No, unless you got me muted.
No, it could have been, you were speaking and then something happened. We'll reset the time, if you're prepared to answer.
Sure. A minute?
Minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, and say the question again.
What is it that you would be bringing to the table as an independent that would be different than the candidates that are running under the same ticket? Essentially,
Well, I bring over 25 years of community outreach experience. I bring a fifth generation perspective to the 3rd Police District. I bring restorative justice experience, which I'm currently running. I run a restorative justice community hub, and the opportunity was given to me by Chief Judge Tim Evans. You don't just get that if you don't have experience in the community. You don't get that if you don't have a good rapport with the resident. The district council position office wants you to have restorative justice hub. The reason being, we don't need our individuals, what happened to my nieces and nephews, to be criminalized and put in the judicial system. We need to be able to bring restorative justice practice to be able to alleviate that and keep them from having a case down in Ogden, or if they're an adult, going to 26 in California for non-felony criminal offenses. I also bring the fact that when I was with a former community organizer for St. Anthony Hospital, I'm the one who went to Jim Switzer and the brass at St. Anthony said, you know, there's a mental health crisis that's affecting the people of color, Black and Hispanic.
that's your time, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Janice and Anthony, we're not going to ask everybody all the same questions because it wouldn't be enough time. I'm going to ask you, Janice, the same question. Anthony, I'm going to skip over you because it sounds like your fellows deferred to you being the #1 candidate. So Janice, I'd like for you to speak on why we would need to give you our vote as an independent as opposed to what these folks are offering.
You did. Okay, there you go. All right, so as an independent candidate, what I bring to the table is a strategic approach that can reduce this violence that we see in our community. It's strategic and it's all inclusive. I've done the work in the community. I've heard the outcry of the families, of youth, and individuals caught up in the system. And although you know, there's different components to this, and it's going to take all of us working together, I believe that with trusted leadership and a strategic plan, that we can get the changes that we want to see in the community. And I believe that that is what I bring to the table. I have all kinds of educational experience. I've worked with civil and community organizations, state, federal organizations. We can get the funding that we want to see in our community. We can get the resources that we want to see in our community. We come together and strategically work this thing out. We can get the changes in the community, but it's going to take all of us working together. And so I have the plan. I have an approach, and that's what I bring to the table.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bryant, you expressed that one of the things you were interested in was working with the police and making decisions about police policies. Given that the Chicago Police Department is under federal consent decree, what policies do you feel that you would be able to make changes to? And if you could take a moment to explain to everyone what the federal consent decree is.
Yes, I can take a few seconds. I just wanted to address, so Empowering Communities for Public Safety is a coalition to help get this ordinance passed. They're not necessarily pushing any candidates, so they have all the candidates' information on the website. With that being said, some of the policies that I think we need to read over and discuss is the police consent decree. Within the police consent decree, they have sections about hiring process, as well as practices and policies. So one of those specific policies that has been going around in the city council recently was the Andrew Young ordinance, which addressed no-knock warrants, as well as doing a better thorough job when it comes to searches, as well as with warrants. So with that being said, that's just some of the things that we're pushing to happen. Also creating a community safety task force that is community oriented, people preparing them, training them how to do research on the police department. Some of the issues that we've discovered, as well as, me as in Jim and Anna, was that the 3rd district has the longest response to call time, so which is an hour long. So those are some of the issues that we want to address, as well as talking to some of our residents about the hiring process. They want more people that look like them.
All right, thank you. Okay, so this is a quick question for all the panelists. You can unmute yourselves, and I'm gonna ask you guys to keep yourselves unmuted because I think you guys can all be civil and we don't have to keep the unmute button.
I'll try.
Yeah, try. And if not, we can just mute you back. So defund the police, simply yes or a no. I'm gonna start with the person that's on my left of the screen, Mr. Carrington. Defund the police, yes or no?
No.
Anna?
I refuse to answer that question because I don't have the data to give you yes or no.
All right, Mr. Blissitt?
No.
All right, Janice Jones?
No.
Mr. Bryant?
Reallocated funds that's put into the police department. So that is a yes.
That's a yes. All right. Next question is, and this is for you, Mr. Bryant, since you, yes. Gallup polls for the last couple of years show that 81% of African Americans do not want the police defunded. So how do you feel that you can represent the community if one of your bastions is that you want to do something that the public doesn't want? How would you defend that statement? Hold on, let me unmute you. You can just leave yourself unmuted.
Okay. Yeah, so with defunding the police, it's just a slogan, but what a lot of the organizations are asking for is reallocating of funds. For example, if you all heard of the Treatment Not Trauma Center, so that's pushing to have more resources put into mental health organizations as well as a department. That way they can respond to mental health crisis along with police, versus police officers having all this responsibility versus just collaborating with other departments, like the Family and Children's Social Services Department, to make sure that families as well as youth have the resources they need to be strong communities and to prevent violence and to address poverty issues in our community.
Okay.
Can we say more on our, answer or just?
Yeah, go ahead, you can.
Yeah. So the reason I said I need more data, I mean, I know that police received, a budget of $1.9 billion, but I also don't know how policing strategies, deployment, patterns, mental care treatments, and everything that police requires is, efficiently used. And also, I don't believe that some services like, related to the, mental, health care should be handled by the, police. Simply, police should not be burdened, by that. And the funds should also not be there. Also, I know that in 2022, last year, the city dedicated $400 million for violence prevention programs. And I would like to see that money being spent for exactly those kind of purposes, for violence, intervention, groups like the real people who are doing their life-saving, outreach work, on the street. I would not like to see that money dedicated to the, police, but rather to the community organization that are doing that job.
All right, thank you. Mr. Carrington, you spoke about restorative justice, and we know that restorative justice efforts are long-term, but what would be some of your short-term ideas for enhancing community safety?
Well, what I would do is to make sure police patrol high volume areas. We have a police department that would sit in one location, and then when they get a call, they respond then. And when it's a shooting, they even respond a little later, as opposed to just patrolling the area, because that's what you do. You're a patrol officer. You should be patrolling a high volume area, patrol the community. While I was out doing some canvassing, that was some of the things that was asked of me by some of the residents. They would like to see police officers patrol. But let me answer the mental health question. I'm the one, as a community organizer, through the 3rd Police District right there on Ogden, came up with the idea to have our therapists at our wellness center, 16th and Hamlin, to accompany a 3rd District police officer to one of the communities, whether it's North Lawndale, South Lawndale, West Garfield, East Garfield, when a person was acting out, to be able to get that person under control, get them out the house, get them over to St. Anthony Hospital, and get them some type of treatment if they didn't receive anything, and that's why they was acting out. And that idea came off of what happened in West Garfield when the father called the Chicago Police Dispatch and told him, I want my son, whose name was Greer, removed out the house. Well, that didn't go well because the therapist didn't accompany that 10th District police officer there. He went in, according to the police report, came at him. They said he came at him with a bat. He shot and killed him, if you remember the story. But he also shot and killed
That's
the
your
neighbor.
time, Mr. Carrington.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Janice Jones,
Yes.
same question.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Of course. We know that restorative justice efforts are a long-term goal, but in the short term, what would be your ideas for enhancing community safety?
Okay, so first and foremost, I believe public safety should be a top priority. And I believe that community relationships, we have to have trusted relationships with the police and the community. So when it comes to the mental health issues, deep, like moving funds around to fund a mental health facility, we have state agencies, we have city and state agencies out there that receive funding for mental health and for our youth. But what is missing in that process is communication and connections. See, we have to connect the agencies, we have to connect the community, because services and resources are out there and they're available. Police funding should be exactly that, police funding for public safety issues. Mental health, yes, it's a public safety issue, but guess what? There are other organizations that receive funding to address mental health. So I think all of those people, all of those parties need to be at the table. We need to decide, we need to figure out how this thing can work. How can they get the services that they need? And how can we have public safety? With everything that is going on in the world today, we need to be able, our seniors need to feel safe to go back and forth to the store. Our children need to be able to play outside safely. Yes, we need increased police control. How are we going to build those relationships? We need to see the police in our communities. They need to have a presence. The children need to see the police in the community. They need not to be afraid of police. But we have to build these relationships across the state, not just the city. I'm sorry. Yes.
All right. But you did bring up a good point, which leads to an excellent segue into another question that we have someone put in, which is, I'm going to ask this, Mr. Blissitt. How do you plan to build community? We understand from reading some of the documentation that you guys will be required to have meetings with the community. From some of the community members, and these are ones that have been involved in the community for 2 to 3 decades, the statement was, we've never seen hardly any of you ever before. So what will be your involvement with the community? How will you develop these community relationships to have these meetings, especially when you're kind of unknown? Please start.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Anthony. I get it. Respect for the house is critical when we're stepping into communities. And I know we have elders who have been doing the work for 40, 50 years. So on this path, I've worked my hardest to connect with Darlene Tribune as a mentor of sorts, who I can call on and ask questions about certain issues. I've worked hard to connect with Evelyn Johnson in the 20th Ward as well. And we recently all sat down and we engaged this discussion where we were joined by Maureen Perkins of the Community Policing Initiative. A few of us, we've worked hard to sit in on the Together We Can calls because we acknowledge that the community is present at this table. Who am I or anyone else to step in without acknowledging the work that's taking place? You know, I haven't worked directly with these organizations, but my work with the Urban League is well documented. I've worked with various schools throughout our district, as well as throughout our city, at the management level, as well as within the classroom level. I want to be clear, you know, to defund the police, that's a great slogan, but, you know, I'm looking at policing beyond just policing. You know, we must incorporate mental health services and the work that's taking place at DFSS, the Department of Family and Support Services, must be funded to supplement, you know, ground level policing. We cannot continue to load our officers with the responsibility of saving our society. We need a complete package. We're doing this to teachers as well. We can't do this any longer.
All right, thank you. Let's see, should I ask them? All right, different question. Anna, how many ride-alongs have you done, in what districts and on what watch, and what did you learn, if anything?
Excuse me, how many what?
Ride-alongs. So the question is asking to see how much involvement have you had from the understanding of the police. Have you done any ride-alongs with any of the police districts, and if so,
Right,
what?
right. Yeah, I think it has been 2 to 3 months that I'm participating every Friday on Together We Can meetings, and trying to, understand, what community needs when it comes to the public safety, how to, communicate with them.
Anna, hold on. I'm gonna pause you for a moment. Pause your time. When I say ride-alongs, we don't mean meetings that you've gone to, but that you've actually got in the car with the officers and rode on one of their shifts to see the reality from their viewpoint. Have you done any ride-alongs?
No, have you?
Okay, I'm not the one running for position. All right.
Yeah, but I will explain. I'm not aware of any community members, and I know many that any of them have been on that program, and I'm not sure that that program is even, existing now. I'm sure if it does, it's still active, that I will be on that, but I'm participating, in a different community, activities. Like 1 month after I moved to the South Shore, I immediately joined Hey, Neighbor by, NNA, and started, walking streets with them. And on some of those walks, we have been, accompanied by, police, members. So that was the genius, idea, of a wall-free, very simple idea, where we walk the streets of the South Shore and simply say hi to neighbor. So that caused, normalization of, relationships between neighbors, and just building, trust, not just between the neighbors, but also with police, people who've been, with us, and the people, from the neighborhood. So while I did not ride with them in the car, I did, walk the streets with them.
Thank you. Have any of the candidates done any ride-alongs to anything where you've been able to see life from an officer's perspective? Feel free to just answer. We won't time this one. I'm just looking for a yes or a no.
Well,
Yeah, so I'll answer this question. I think, the requirements of the
Jim, we'll
position-
let Craig go first, and then we'll come to you.
Yeah.
well, as the community organizer in the North-South Lawndale community, that's why I came up with the idea of having a therapist to go to a call, because I did a ride along, and I was able to see what police from the lens of a police officer. They have snap, quick judgments to make. A lot of times we criticize them, and I have to be candid. I was like one of the main person to criticize them, but once I was able to put those lenses on and stand in back of them and see how they have to make this quick decision, it allowed me to understand what it is they do. That's why I came up with the form that will address mental health, behavioral health, and substance abuse disorder. So when a police officer come up on this, they get the training through the academy, they best know how to handle it. But more importantly, they have a therapist from either St. Anthony Hospital or Stroger Hospital or Sinai Hospital to accompany them on these type of calls. But to answer your question, I have to say yes.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blissitt.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Thank you all for tackling this question. I think this question cuts at the core, of the debate. You know, have I done ride-alongs? Not directly, but I've worked in CPS where we had the Police Fire and Training Academy, as well as with the Chicago Urban League. We worked with the police athletic league where officers came out and provided mentorship to our youth and explained and engaged the concept of policing. But I want to be clear about this. You know, I'm most interested in accountability and then shoring up capacity, making sure we have officers from our communities reflected within the ranks. You know, I see the opportunity to engage our young people around the idea of post-secondary planning and entering pathways into the public safety space. I've worked in that space and prepping students for career access. So I get it. You know, we have the FOP in place to advocate for officers in the event, you know, they're feeling overworked and, you know, unappreciated at the city level. But this position is on behalf of advocating for our communities first and foremost. And I don't want that to be lost. To address some other things, you know, I've worked directly with, you know, Cook County, as well as the GIST programs, and in direct collaboration with the courts, as well as attorneys looking for diversion plans through the Chicago Urban League, right at 845 West 69th Street, where Mr. Carrington's program currently takes place. So I've engaged that population across 69th Street for many years, working with the Salvation Army over there. So I wanted to be clear, we're all doing this work. So I don't want us to monopolize the work, but there's a great deal of effort still needed, and we must collaborate, which is missing from some of the candidates, the desire to collaborate. So thank you, Anthony.
Thank you. Janice, did you have anything to add about the ride-along situation?
Well, okay, so I've never did like an actual ride along, right? But what I wanted to say is that I did participate in what they called the Citizens Academy, where there were different forms of law enforcement agencies, from the FBI to the CIA, and they had all these different forms of law enforcement present. And you go through this training, and after you get through the training, there's a portion of it to where you have a virtual experience where you are the law enforcement agent, and you have a partner, and you guys go and you deal with a situation. And that virtual situation was so like, it has your adrenaline pumping. It's like so for real. But it gave you a really good idea of what law enforcement agencies have to do when they go out on a call and they have to make this split-second judgment, you know? And so it kind of helped me to see things a little differently, and to understand a little bit more about what they do. So my thing is that, and I've worked with the police, different law enforcement agencies at different levels of government, right? Regarding our youth, our family, and the community things that we do in the neighborhood. So that's the gist of it. Yep.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bryant, did you have anything you want to add on that subject? Sorry, I think you're, okay, let me unmute you.
Thank you, Anthony.
All right.
Yes, I have been on ride-alongs in the 2nd district. I have an uncle who served in the police for 27 years. And as a kid, I ride along with some of his stops. Also, I've done close work with Commander Watson in the 3rd district when I worked in the state rep's office. A lot of public safety is more than just ride-alongs. We've done meetings with police officers for the neighborhood known as O Block. We have done community meetings with the Woodlawn Church, with the pastor over there, addressing some of the issues over in that area. And just how can we galvanize our public officials as well as organizations to address violence prevention. I also want to say with restorative justice, there is a community justice for youth initiative. It's an organization that can provide people restorative justice practitioner certificates. They've been around. They have spearheaded a lot of the restorative justice work, as well as the restorative justice hubs. There's one in Precious Blood, which is in the Back of the Yards community. I have done work with them with addressing violence prevention. And I think we need to incorporate that work when it comes to the local police district council.
All right, stay on, Mr. Bryant. I want to ask you this next question. What solutions to violence that are preventative, community-based, and include non-policing alternatives are you proposing? I know some people have already spoke about the mental health piece, but the second part of this question I think is the most important, which is where have you seen these proposals work? Oh, sorry, hold on. I think you muted yourself. Yeah, all right.
I've just been muting myself to be
Yeah,
respectful.
I noticed. It's all right.
But yes, I work with an organization help funding a violence prevention project, a violence prevention program at Project Hood. That has worked. If you all have not seen a recent article about the violence as well as the murder and gun violence in Woodlawn has been going down because we have been employing violence interrupters to be out in the field, in the community, as well as there's a coalition of that work across the city of Chicago. There's a report out from the Northwestern University that helps support our work as well. So some of the public officials in our district are aware of that work and has been supporting that work. It is new. It started in 2021. So we're just now going on to our first full year and working on our second year. That violence prevention program was originally during the summer, and it moved from the summer to year round. So I'll post that article as well. You know, I am a person that share information and details. So please feel free to take a look at that link. And I've done work with Pastor Brooks at Project Hood for a long time. I'm actually a member of New Beginnings Church as well. So, and I'll end there.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Carrington, same question. You spoke a lot about restorative justice. Where have you seen this work?
Well, doing the Restorative Justice Project, 90% of our cases are gun cases. So I am actually at the forefront of cutting down on this violence, giving young men and young women an alternative other than what they know from being in the community. I actually work with Project Brotherhood when it comes to uplifting young people and giving them a better way of living their life. 90% of the restorative justice court cases are gun cases. Second chance, that's a specialty court. So I've been able to, as the community court case manager, get them in the program, restore their lives, get their record expunged, get them in either college. I got a young man going away to Southern Illinois to play football. In the fall, I had another young man, I was able to get him into Eastern Illinois. And these are individuals that had gun cases. The one who's going to Southern Illinois, he didn't just have one gun case, he had 2 gun cases. And through the goodness of Chief Judge Tim Evans and my recommendation, we was able to give him a second chance. Those type of programs, I am going to bring it over into the 3rd district where my family reside and been residing there for the past 65 years. I don't just talk about it, I know about it. And as being a paralegal that has expunged and sealed people's criminal records, and those records that couldn't be expunged and sealed, I did clemency hearings for them, giving them an alternative so they could move their life forward to cut down on either gang violence or just a culture of violence. Okay?
Thank you. Anna,
Yes.
question is for you. If elected, what would be your first action?
Well, actually, I am already working with my colleagues on my first action, and that is bringing restorative justice community court to the 3rd police district, because as of now, we don't have one. And we are meeting tomorrow with the Cook County person who is, handling and this and who can help us with this, logistics, right? But one of the first thing, that we will do, we'll just meet, right? Like we will create a meeting and make sure that we schedule our meetings during the time, when the working people can be present, right? So our main goal is to have, in the hub, as many people from the community as we have, because numbers will give us, power. And we as a district council will be as successful as the, members of, communities are present in those, meetings and giving us actually the feedback on how do they feel, about, policing in the 3rd police district, and what just from those, alternatives, measures to the classic policing in relation to the, public safety they want. So we will be listening them very, very carefully, and we will ask them to give us a task, like what are their priorities, what they want, to have first, like what are some of their specific, needs. But we will also try to communicate, work together with the community, organizations that
That's
are
your
already
time, Mama.
present and that are doing this kind of work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Janice Jones. Next question. Let me unmute you before we start so you don't lose time.
Okay.
One of the things that's been pointed out by one of the other candidates, and I think we've all seen in the newspaper, which is that the 3rd district does have extremely long response times and the worst in the city. What would be your proposal to do something to fix this, if it's something that you feel would be within the council's power?
Well, that is something that would take, that I would have to like really look into, right, to get a full grasp of what is going on and what is needed. I do believe that we need more police officers. There is a shortage and we need more police officers. So, but I would definitely need to like really look more into that and to see how we can come together to strategize on that. That's it.
Okay, Mr. Blissitt, same question.
Yeah, thank you. I asked Commander Watson about this very question on Together We Can calls a few weeks ago, and he was very transparent and honest in his approach. He made it very clear that he's not interested in a hyper-militarized community with scores of officers throughout, but we do need to increase our numbers to meet the demand. But with that, I'm very clear on this, we must produce officers who are first and foremost interested in our communities. We can no longer get caught up in a scenario where we're simply receiving officers from the academy and they're not interested in the day-to-day affairs of our community. That's social disorganization, right? So we have to make sure we're tapping into the post-secondary planning process with our young people as they seek out career options. Olive Harvey is establishing a wonderful program as the city is now moving away from the 60 credit hour requirement at the post-secondary junior college level. I'm going to continue to push our aldermen to perhaps, totally remove that post-secondary requirement. We're sending our young people off to fighting wars at 18 years old. Let's invest in our young people during the post-secondary planning phase and present public safety as an option, not to confuse public safety with just policing. We have to engage the full scope, mental health, economics, as well as day-to-day patrol and beat officer duties. So there's a scope of issues we must address, but filling vacancies and alleviating officers from the burden of apathy. Thank you.
And can I add on to that?
You can, Mr. Bryant. I was coming to you next with the same question. So
Yes, I just wanted to state that with Jim and Anna, we was at a forum in the 6th Ward discussing mental health issues, where we brought up about the suicide rates with CPD. Unfortunately, the suicide rate in Chicago is the highest among any police department across the country. We have to provide mental health services across the board. And I think that's why we are pushing for mental health initiatives, because not only are our communities suffering from it, but the people who are supposed to ensure our safety is also suffering for it. Also, with that, I agree. I've been in conversation with Commander Watson. They are definitely understaffed. I was just at a 20 ward community forum where we was talking about where one of the commanders commanders from the headquarters was talking about reallocating resources to the 3rd district. I think that's something Commander Watson has been pushing for some time now. With that being said, I want to re-echo or reiterate what Jim has stated of getting people from our community. CPD has a hiring issue. I know we hear a lot about how Black communities do not trust the police, but yet there are still Black applicants and they're not getting hired. So we have to look into that issue as well.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to change the time to 1 minute on this one so that we can get to the audience questions. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Carrington. It's a fantasy question. If you had the power to change one thing about the Chicago Police Department, what would that one thing be?
The culture of the department is still antiquated and operating like it has in its inception. And then also to make it more culturally sensitive when you policing communities like the Black community.
All right. Anna, same question.
I think I would change CPD seniority system that allows for the least experienced police to be assigned to the neighborhoods with the biggest safety concerns, right? So there was a data which I had my hands on, and in the 5 districts with the highest murder rates in previous year, over 50% of police had less than 10 years of experience. So that is both putting the police in a danger and the people from those communities. So definitely CPD seniority system.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blissitt.
Yeah, I would definitely create an evaluation process. I would also, once again, look at the hiring process. Why aren't our Black applicants making it through the process? Something needs to change, and that's within policing. Is this, the mental health screenings? Is this an issue of biases at the, background search or, whatever other instruments are being used? Why aren't our people making it through to the finish line? Again, we're starting to look at that 60 credit hour requirement. We're now implementing a system of waivers. If you operate within 1 year in certain sectors, you can get that waiver. But I would, push for a more aggressive approach again to the post-secondary planning pathways. The previous mayor, initiated this planning process for our seniors. Let's be legit and serious about it. Let's create career opportunities in the public sector for our high school students. We'll be advisors. We won't have direct votes or anything, but I will advise our aldermen as well as the Commission for Public Safety and Accountability accordingly.
All right. Ms. Jones, same question.
Could you repeat the question for me, please?
Fantasy question. If you could change one thing about the Chicago Police Department, you have the ultimate power. What would be the one thing you would change?
I would change the face of the police department, right? I would want, I think I would want to see a police department that was, more fair, more engaged, more, and not just with like a portion of the police department, but all the officers on all the varying shifts, right? I feel we as a community need to know our officers, and we need to change our perceptions of the officers. But that, I feel, is going to come through a lot of training for the police, training for the community, right? And I think the whole trust relationship, we need to deal with the whole trust relationship, and to just bring us all together to work for the safety of the whole community. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bryant.
Yes, great question. I know you said one thing, but I have two things, but one, training when changing when police officers are coming onto the force. I think after graduating from the academy, I think they still need a full year of just field training, walking around with their field training officer, getting to know organizations, churches, businesses, the residents in the neighborhood before they are active on the force. That's one thing I would change. The second thing I would change is the time schedule, their shift. I think it needs to be very similar to the fire department. I think there needs to be 3 days on, 4 days off. That way police officers are not overwhelmed with working 70, 80 hours a week, especially when they're looking to get overtime. I think we have burnt our police officers out here in the city of Chicago, and we need to provide some time for them to rest. And that will help with their mental health.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm going to turn it over now to our moderators who have been fielding.
Can I add one more
Yeah,
thing?
I'll give you
I
one more.
change one more thing.
All right.
I would like to see police, on the street, actually, walking, on the street, like I see police, at least here in the South Shore, they are always, in their cars, right? So there is no possibility for the people from the neighborhood just to meet them, have a small talk and build, trust. So definitely, I think, they should walk streets more.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to turn it over to the moderators who've been collecting questions from the audience, and I will let them figure out which one's going to go first. And they'll be reading the questions aloud.
I believe we were going to go alphabetical. So Candace, that's you first if you have any.
Oh my God. Okay. If you do not win, are you still gonna be involved with the community in the 3rd district?
All right, we're going to go across. I think we should ask each one of that. Mr. Carrington, did you hear the question?
Well, I'm already involved in the community, working in the restorative justice. It's the community court. I'm already involved in the community. To answer your question, yes, I'm already involved in the community. I'm a mentor at Progressive Community Church and also Park Manor Community Church, which is at 73rd and St. Lawrence. I'm already in the community as it relates to assisting individuals and getting their records expunged and sealed through a legal ministry that I helped to put together. So, and my family being community oriented all their life, that's why I'm doing this. I was talking to a lady who I was passing my materials out, and she said, you're the only person has came out here. I don't even know about this position, this office, but now I know because of you. But what I brought her to, she wanted to know how much I know about the community. I said, when Martin Luther King was in Chicago, he wasn't just at 16th and Hamlet fighting for housing discrimination. He came on the south side of Chicago and protest Oakwood Cemetery, which is right across the street from the 3rd District Police Station. And my family, my father, my uncles, and my
All right, that's time,
were
sir.
involved in it. So I'm there. I'm in the community.
All right, thank you. Anna, same question.
Yes, of course, so I'm already, a member of different public safety, initiative, like for example, around, O'Keefe School, we are doing sort of safe space, activation, providing, loving community presence and making sure that kids are safely, leaving their school. I'm also participating in all programming related to, NNA, right? So I'm their fervent, supporter, and, anytime, they're doing, something, I can help, I'm doing that. So definitely, as I stated in my, introduction, my goal is to be part of, community, and the way for me to truly be one is to do things, that I can, to share my time, and my skills. So definitely.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blissitt. You should be unmuted now.
Cool. I would definitely continue to work in the community. I think, as it stands right here at 69th and Anthony, I've worked diligently with Park Manor Elementary School as a children's author, as well as educator myself. I've gone into the schools, I've passed out my children's book, I've facilitated youth programs. I've been working on acquiring a vacant property adjacent to my home for years now, with the intention of creating a community garden in conjunction with Park Manor Elementary. I continue to engage the Cook County Land Bank about all of the vacant properties right here on my 6900 block alone. I continue to consult the individuals I've been talking to as think partners and thought partners, mentors. I continue to engage the Toma Nation moving right here into my community, our community at 71st Street. I'll continue to work with Carper, you know, who's fought diligently for this in empowering communities through public safety ordinance. I will, and I promise to do so, certainly.
All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Jones, same question.
So of course, yes, I have, like I said, I've been in this community forever. I'm a product of the Chicago public school system. I started my block clubs, and I've helped other individuals to start block clubs throughout the South Side of Chicago. I work with the school to produce all sorts of programming, sports, academic programs for youth. I do events across the district. Violence prevention districts across the district. So this is not new for me. I'm in this to win it. This is my community. It's my responsibility, and I take that very seriously. So win or lose, I'm in it. I'm in it to win this for the generations that are to come in my community. It's my responsibility. It's not an option. It's not an option at all.
Thank you, Janice. Mr. Bryant.
Thank you for the question. I will continue to work with the organizations that lays within the 3rd district, like Project Hood, Sunshine Ministry, as well as other organizations. Continuing to host community meetings. As Jim stated earlier, we hosted a community meeting at Bessie Coleman Library where we talked to some of our organizations about what ECPS is and how this local police district council, how they can have a voice in it. I will continue to amplify the community work that I've been engaging in over the past 15 years. I know I may look older than I am. I'm 29, but I've been doing this work since I was 14. And I wanted to continue to elevate and empower our residents, especially people who are physically displaced, people with mental health issues, as well as youth in our area, to expand workforce development. I've been working with organizations and coalitions to provide workforce development programs in the 3rd.
All right, thank you. Moderators, what other questions do we have?
All right,
Okay.
that's me up next.
Yes, I'm anxious.
Yes. So the next question that I have is that I hear there are a number of problems in our district, and I thought the purpose of this council was to be focused on public safety. Can you explain your focus if you are elected?
All right, let's start with Anna.
Sure. So my focus would be prevention, listening, and partnering. So what kind of strategies, I would implement? First of all, I would try to engage the youth as active, participants, in this violence, prevention work. I believe especially justice, involved youth. When they are part of the problem, they are also part of, solutions. So they know what is going on, and, we can learn from them. Then I would also like to increase the, location-specific programming for youth in schools and parks, and the churches. Next thing, I would also like to work on providing resources for, jobs, employment, and most importantly, counseling options for the justice, involved, residents. Then next, we definitely need wraparound services for a homeless youth and young, adults, transitioning, in their life, right? Then, I know that there is, already some programming in the South Shore around training in, effective parenting, especially, for a man below the, age, of the 24th. Then we definitely need more people who are doing training in trauma, informed.
All right, that's your time.
Stuff like that, yeah.
All right, thank you. Janice, same question.
Okay, can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Aaron can repeat it.
Yeah, no problem. I hear there are a number of problems we have in our district, and I thought the purpose of this council was to be focused on public safety. Can you explain your focus if you are elected?
Okay, so public safety can be achieved through accountability, first of all, accountability has to be key. Our Black communities have to have a voice in the policy and the procedures and the things and decisions that are being made about our community. We need to have that voice. They need to hear our input, and we need to develop strategies and initiatives based on the individual needs of the community, okay? We need services for our youth, but the Black community is a strong community, it's a resilient community. We just have to come together and figure out how to unite in our resources, how to get the most of our resources, and how to go get the funding for our communities. When we're talking about public safety, we have children that are acting out for reasons, who can say? There's so many different reasons, but we need to have services for them. We need to have resources for their parents. We need to be able to trust our police departments. We need to be able to trust them. And then the community, when they feel that they have that trust, right? And you'll see more of the community involvement, engagement, because everyone needs to feel safe. Everyone needs to feel safe.
Thank you. Mr. Bryant, same question.
Yes, so for so long, public safety has been looked at as a law enforcement matter versus as ensuring community safety. And community safety looks like ensuring that there's job opportunities, entrepreneurial opportunities, as well as violence prevention programs, restorative justice programs. With that being said, this ordinance was created for police accountability. With the local police district council and these candidates, I think we have to understand that we have to address public safety issues and the root causes of public safety issues, which is poverty, right? So that's why a lot of the work I've been doing with expanding workforce development, violence prevention programs is crucial when it comes to addressing the root issues of public safety. And then as far as with police accountability, we have to, it's not a lack of trust, it's about more so how can we restore the harm that police departments have done, especially here in the city of Chicago.
All
I
right,
hope that answers your question here.
Mr. Carrington, same question.
Well, first of all, I'm a community court case manager. I'm already doing all this restorative justice. We call it a repair harm agreement, and we bring the stakeholders together. So the community is the stakeholder, they've been harmed. The police department is a stakeholder because they're in the community. They feel that they've been harmed. And when I say they feel like they've been harmed, they feel like the community, there's a trust issue. So we need to wedge that gap. They feel the community don't help them enough out when murders is committed. One of the things that's personal to me, my nephew was murdered on 72nd and University. And I was throwing my weight around to the detective. Just tell me who I know, my family long standing in the area. And you know what the detective said? We know who did it. And you have family members and they have friends who know who did it. So how can we do our job if they not helping us to do that job? So that's a trust issue. So that Logan that's going on in the community, I know this from sitting in peace circles, having the restorative justice.
That's your time, Mr. Carrington.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr.
Snitches get stitches. We need to stop that.
All right. Mr. Blissitt.
Yeah, so once I win and assume the responsibility, I'll first and foremost coordinate with our alderperson. I know over here we have a contentious 6-ward race going on. We'll see who's victorious at the end, but I'll definitely coordinate there. There seems to be agreement around the need for an increase in lighting. We have to, speak to the issues with the Hyundais and Kias being stolen. There's some mobilization happening against the manufacturers. Perhaps we'll support that. I'll also engage, Chief Parks, CPS staff at the central office level around coordinations with Olive Harvey College to make sure our students are taking advantage of this new pathway opportunity into public safety. I'll also continue to engage the Together We Can coalition to continue to learn about the major issues happening throughout the district.
All right.
We'll also work towards nominating individuals for the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability, perhaps most importantly. So can't forget that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next question.
Okay, I have 8 questions, but I know I'll only be able to ask one at a time. So the first one is, where will we source the social workers and clinical practitioners?
All right, let's start with Mr. Bryant.
Could you clarify that question? Where will we source them? So like what organizations will they come from?
Yeah, that came from an audience member. I believe that was the intent, to find out where will we get the social workers and clinical practitioners.
Okay, yes, thank you so much.
Mhm.
So Shabazz Community Wellness is an organization that focuses on mental health in the 20th ward, as well as Metropolitan Family Services, as well as other organizations like Friends Health provide not only services for physical health, but also mental health, as well as collaborating with other organizations in the Department of Public Health to ensure that there are clinical trained mental health professionals coming to the 3rd district to provide their services. So some of the work I've done while working in government, we've hosted community resource fair where people can come and they can connect with physical health physicians as well as mental health therapists. And then continue to collaborate with some of our organizations. I mentioned too with Project Hood and Sunshine Ministry, with providing counselors there.
All right, thank you. Let's go with Anna, same question.
Yes, so I know that there is, organization which is called the Threshold. So I think, we can have, them and, source some of their programming. But then again, in our, neighborhood, we have, Lawrence, Hall, which many of those programming are actually, related, to the mental, healthcare. And we also know that on the side of the city, there is plan, for the budget, at least at this point, like to, have some state funded, mental health care, facilities. So we will definitely be, on the forefront and looking forward what we can get from that for our, communities. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Let's go with the next question, Melanie. We're not going to ask them all the same questions, so we can get through.
Okay. The next question, and this could have been asked already, but it's from an audience member. It says, if you are not voted in, what will you do after the election?
We did answer that one. Let's move.
Okay. All right. So the 3rd thing is a comment where one of the audience members says, I have been on ride-alongs and you cannot understand what is going on within the police district without it. So I'd like to just add to that. Do you agree or disagree with that comment?
All right, why don't we'll ask each of the candidates to just say whether or not you agree or disagree with that comment, and then maybe based on what you say,
I would say we with the lack of involvement with officers, we have a lack of understanding and perhaps empathy for the day-to-day affairs, right? But, for me, my interactions with officers have come through other measures and other means that were not specifically ride-alongs. I will now commit to doing ride-alongs to get a better understanding of what officers are experiencing in the vehicles at that level. But, again, my interactions have come through the Police Athletic League, retired officers working directly with the Urban League in the wake of the Laquan McDonald shooting, around trying to foster community with officers, as well as, giving our young people some insight into a potential career opportunity. So you're correct. That close interaction will secure a better understanding of the ground level experiences of officers. I do not discount that, but you also have to understand the social climate. You also have to understand, the logistics of, leadership. You also have to understand how to connect community and people. So there's a wealth of things which must be understood, including that one approach. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Carrington, same question.
When that question was asked, I'm the only candidate that have done this as a community organizer. One thing about experience, you could get up here and have these rose-colored glasses of all what you're gonna do, but if you don't have that experience, you're not gonna be able to do it. As I said, I was critical. I'm being candid. I was critical of police officers until I had a chance to put those lenses on and see they have a quick decision to make. A quick decision, whether they going home, that's their model. They all want to go home in one piece, whether they going home or not. And a quick decision, if this call they coming on, that this person is going to be able to live to see another day. So you just got to find policies that will equip the police officers to be able to respond better on calls. As I said, as a community organizer, I'm the one who came up with, let's send one of our therapists with them to see if we can talk this person down and be able to get them out the house where the officer can go home in one piece and this person live to see another day. That is one of the reasons why I run for this. It didn't take this for me. Okay, thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Melanie, next question.
Okay, the next question is, other than Mr. Carrington, which of the candidates have had negative experiences with police officers?
I'll start with Anna. The way you guys arrange it, I'm gonna start with Anna. We'll go with Jim, then Janice, then Anthony. I think each one of them should answer that.
Okay, well, I did not have any negative experience with the police where I live here in the South Shore. Moreover, I always had a positive experience with all police that I met, but that is just me. And let's be real, I'm a white person and I'm, a woman, so I don't know how much that partakes in that treatment. But I also have a statement from many of my neighbors who had a very negative experience. And moreover, I looked, into the data. There was a survey, and less than 50% of the people in the 3rd Police District actually trust police. So problem is there. I would really wish that problem is solved, because that will make us feel all safer, us, as residents, and, police, themselves. So.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blissitt.
Yeah, so I'll give you, 2 examples. And I want to be clear once again, my father's, upward mobility from the Robert Taylor Housing Project came through going to the Army and becoming a military policeman for nearly 20 years. So I grew up in a household with a military MP, and, he had both the critical lens as well as just an analytical lens about the profession. Now, my earliest instance, my father, along with me and my sisters in a vehicle, officers pulled my dad over for his kind of wide turn, and they approached the vehicles with guns drawn, screaming and yelling. Traumatic for me and my young sisters first. Most recently, while involved in a cannabis equity rally or protest, I was arrested and detained in the public way at the city Riverwalk, because I refused to leave the public way. So that overuse of policing for, a few individuals peacefully protesting for equity in cannabis and being detained and abused while in custody was my exact experiences with the officers and my only time being arrested.
All right, thank you. Janice Jones.
Okay, so yes, I've had negative experiences with the police. In my advocacy for families and youth, I've had negative experiences with them, but in the same token, I think what helped me to get past it was the fact that I'm a beat facilitator, and I had an opportunity to, we were having a get together on the corner, actually 75th and Coles, and there was a shooting. And it was quite a few people out there, maybe 40, 50 people. And we heard the gunshots. And everybody was running away. Everybody was running away from the gunshots. And they were getting down and they were ducking. But that police officer that was out there with us, he ran towards the gunshots. And he was trying to protect us. And I had a newfound respect for them. Because, at the end of the day, they stand on the watch. They stand on their watch. And when but gunshots
All
are
right, that's your time.
going-
Janice.
they're running towards the gunshots.
Thank you.
So-
Mr. Bryant. Mr. Bryant, same question.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I've had negative experiences with police officer. When I was 15, I was walking in my neighborhood when police officers put on their sirens and their lights. And I know it's a tactic to make people run, right? To see if I would run. There was a second incident of that occurring where I was stopped and frisked and searched, which put a very bad taste in my mouth with police officers in the city of Chicago. I grew up with family that's been on the force. They've told me their stories as police officers. I've also done work with a fellow officer who is retired here in the 3rd District, who's running for office, and had conversations with her about her experience as a police officer, working with her colleagues about some of the lack of support of her work.
All right, thank you. Next question, Melanie.
Okay. The next question is, how would you approach police presence in and around public schools?
Oh, all right, Mr. Blissitt, I'll let you start on that.
Yeah, so I would definitely rely on the school levels to inform me of the necessity and need. Some schools do feel the need for a presence, but I would personally work with schools and the ability to reduce police presence and empower school level security staff. So if there's a need for increased support of school level security, we must again work with the district, that being CPS, and as well as whatever entities are at play, to make sure they are receiving the proper capacity, support, and resources at the school security level. But I don't want to again assume that all schools are dealing with the same cars, right? I want principals, network staff, OCCS, I want OSEL at the table, the Office of Social Emotional Learning, especially at the table as we make determinations about public safety. But I will coach schools into reducing the presence of officers.
All right, Mr. Blissitt, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to that. Since we've all watched in the news lately, you can get shot in the chest by a 6-year-old at school. How does removing a police officer help in that situation and to be replaced by amateurs, I'm going to say, in sense of dealing with that type of threat?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Again, this is an example of where we're burdening our officers with every responsibility within our society, and it's not fair. The same way it's unfair to burden our educators with every issue in society. If you can explain to me how an officer could have prevented that issue, I'll concede. But what I can tell you, an increased presence within that home related to parenting interventions, mental health interventions, surely could help that issue. Again, I am not going to blame officers for a 6-year-old shooting someone in a position of authority as an educator. Again, that's not fair to the police department. That's not fair to our educators. We need supports in the household. We need legislation to stop a 6-year-old from getting weapons in the first place. Let's not lose focus as we point fingers and determine who's best to blame. Again, I would coach schools to reduce that level of presence and support the development of our security staff. Thank you.
And can I add on to that?
Sure.
Yeah, so with that being said, I just shared an article. So a 6-year-old shot a teacher in Virginia. That has not happened here in the city of Chicago. I want to just make that clear with that question. With that being said, right, I would want to echo, we need better gun restriction laws here in the city of Chicago, in the state of Illinois. Unfortunately, there's been so many incidents of people in our community getting access to unregistered weapons. With that being said, Black people do not have access to shipping yards, to train yards. We don't own these things. We don't own the manufacturers. We don't own the transportation. So how are these weapons getting into our community is a question I want to highlight and potentially answer it because this is Chicago focus of the issue. So we have to do a better research around how can we prevent gun violence.
All right, thank you. Melanie, we're gonna jump to Erin real quick. She's got some more questions that apparently
Can I say something, on this subject, just quickly?
all right.
I think we also need to challenge this school to prison pipeline. It is basically a national trend where youth are funneled out of public school into, juvenile, and the criminal legal system. So, I volunteer here, in a juvenile detention center. I'm teaching those kids some science subjects, and many of these youth are Black or brown. They have, disabilities, histories of poverty, abuse, neglect, and would benefit from some, additional support, and the resources. Instead of getting those resources, they are, punished and, pushed, out. So that is something, I think we should work on more.
All right, thank you. Erin, your remaining questions or another?
Actually, I'm going to toss it over to Missy if you don't mind, because she had a question before she got disconnected. She's back.
All right. Did I unmute?
Yes, hello. How much of the current police budget do you think should be, quote, cut or reallocated?
Let's start with Mr. Carrington.
As far as figures, I can't give you that right now, but what I can tell you is that Chicago has the largest operational budget for any police department in the whole country. And one of the problems Chicago has is excessive overtime. I would allocate some of that money to be pushed in the neighborhood of the 3rd Police District for infrastructure along 71st Street and 75th Street. I grew up in the 3rd District. I remember when those areas was beautiful and well looked after and well respected. Also, some of the money will be reallocated to bring service providers throughout the 3rd District to be able to fund hubs. See, people talk about bringing a restorative justice community court and a hub. It takes money. And right now the county don't have the money because I sit in on those budget meetings. They don't have the money to do this. So with the police having this large, massive budget, that money can be reallocated, not to compromise public safety. Let me be clear on that one. Not to compromise public safety, but to get that money for mental health, substance abuse disorder, and also to bring those hubs, and also to bring economics.
That's your time.
Give people a chance to get up on their feet to be able to afford to live.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jones, same question. Are you? I'll unmute you. Sorry, go ahead. Nope, you're still muted. Okay.
All right, so I would, let me just say that as far as like cutting the police budget or whatever, that would definitely have to take more research, right, into that. But I would like to say that a part of the police budget, from my understanding, is meant for crime control and so for prevention. So what I would like to see the funds allocated for is that to increase police presence in the school. And here's what I mean. Every child on every grade level should have had an experience with the police. I remember growing up, Officer Friendly being that person. You get to start off with a positive relationship with the police. Okay, our kids need to have that experience. They don't need to be afraid of the police. And then that the monies that they get for crime prevention, I wanted to piggyback too on that other question, get the social workers, the principals, the community organizations, we all need to be involved in that. I have worked with schools to bring organizations to school, to bring these organizations into schools so that they can have an opportunity to speak with the children on different aspects of what the children might be dealing with. And so we need to have more of these programs going on. We have community organizations that can provide for that under the prevention and crime control. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
It's all right.
I'm sorry.
All right, Erin, next question. Or I'm sorry, Missy, whoever's next. I'm staying out of it.
No worries. Missy, did you have any more?
Yes, just another question. Since the third district's comprised of many African Americans who live in the neighborhoods, and many of those individuals and are comprised of children and hardworking individuals, what basis do you think the police have to make sure they're not robbed every other day, cars stolen, shot at, killed? Many times there's individuals, people of color, who are victims too in the third district. And do they have a right to receive police services to make sure that they're safe? And do people that actually commit crimes against them, should they actually be arrested and held accountable?
All right, let's see. Who should we start with for that one? Let's start with Anna.
I'm sorry, I just did not, understand the question. Can you reset my time and kind of summarize it like?
Yeah, the
What?
question was because a lot of the responses are focused on the offender or the individuals involved in the legal system by providing them services. But I have not heard any conversation about actually making sure there's more police and people are actually getting arrested or even stopped for committing crimes against people.
Okay, so you are arguing, should I answer? Do I think there should be more police, and is that the
Well,
question?
should people get arrested if they carjack people, rob them, or kill people?
I mean, of course, like any crime which is just like that should be, treated, like nobody is against that. But we also need to be very careful of what kind of picture we are painting about our youth. So we know that recently, there have been a surge, in the car, thefts and things like that. And it has been mostly performed by the youth between, age, 18 and 26, somewhere, in that age. But, and that is a fact, that is a data, but, like nobody is really asking, why is this happening? And we mentioned before, the root causes, right, of the crime, of the violence. So we need to shift, focus there on prevention, giving people, jobs, opportunities, trainings and stuff like that, so that they don't go down that path. I don't want to stereotype, youth, in my neighborhood. Like that's definitely not the way to go.
That's your time, Anna.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bryant, same question. Oh, sorry. Hold on, let me reset your time.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to echo what Anna has said, but also added on of redirecting our focus towards violence prevention. I think we have to understand that gun violence, carjackings is nothing new. These issues, these actions has been occurring, and we have to find a different way to solve them. With that being said, we cannot put more resources and move towards mass incarceration and over policing. So we have to address it at the root issue of poverty, as well as you have a lot of abandoned, vacant places in the third district. Myself has been a victim of my car getting broken into a couple of times, and I've called the police both times, and I asked for them to sit a police officer on the block. I have not been the only car broken into, but we have to have a proactive police force to prevent these issues.
All right, thank you. Janice Jones, same question.
Could you repeat the question, please?
The question is, there's many people that live in the third district who are pro-social and trying to do the best thing and work and, so, handle their families, as well as many children who aren't involved in criminal activity. Do they have a right to live without violence against them? And do you think that individuals should be held accountable for committing crimes against people in the third district?
So
should people be arrested?
So when you say should people be arrested, are we talking about adults or are we talking about youth?
Anybody that commits a crime against somebody, should they be arrested? if justifiably so. If you find out someone killed somebody, somebody carjacked somebody, somebody robbed them, do you think those individuals should actually be held accountable by being arrested?
Okay, so here's the thing. Depending upon the crime and that individual being a danger to himself and others, depending upon that, then yes, there should be some arrests made. But when it comes to our youth and when it comes to misdemeanors, there ought to be other programs in place that they can kind of be curbed into, right? And so especially when it comes to our youth, them being arrested, like I said, when it comes to felonies or whatever, murder and things of that nature, that's totally different. But when it comes to things that misdemeanors, breaking into cars, or things of that nature or whatever, we need to redirect their behavior. We need to have the resources in place to whereas we can redirect their behavior. The statistic supports that if there is one person, if a youth has one person in their life, not just youth, adults, if you have one person in your life that you can talk to about things that are going on in your life and they can give you positive feedback, it would change the course of your the path that you're on to this violence.
That's your time, Janice.
Sorry. Okay, thank you.
All right, did you have another question, Missy?
I didn't.
Yes, there's a question about.
Everybody answering these questions, or you just?
No, we're skipping around, Mr. Carrington.
Okay. I wanted to know how the format was. Okay.
Question? Go ahead, you can answer it.
Oh. Well, let me ask. I'm already doing what for a violent crime, considering that I'm a former probation officer, considering I work in court operation for the Cook County government. I'm a Cook County court as a criminal manager. If it's a violent crime in nature and someone was murdered or harmed or mangled, then that person should be prosecuted. But if it's the crimes that I deal with between 18 and 26-year-old, that's what the restorative justice is. It's called a specialty court. It's called giving them a second chance. And I'm the only candidate that would be able to hit the ground running in the 3rd Police District by bringing those programs over there. I talked to Chief Judge Evans. He's the one who brought this together, the court in Lawndale and Avondale and Inglewood. And we take people from the 606, that's where we break it down, 60619 zip code, and bring them over to the court. That's what the hub is going to be able to do.
That's your time, Mr. Carrington.
Thank you.
But I do have a follow-up question for you. You stated that about the 18 to 26-year-olds and restorative justice. So just to be clear, are you saying that those individuals should not be arrested and serve time for violent crimes? They should be given some type of program, or are we saying something different?
We talking about the crime they commit. Now, if it's a retail theft, why would I want to make the court system cumbersome? As a criminal manager for the Circuit Court of Cook County, which I spent 8 years, I've seen cases that shouldn't have been in the court system. That's why you got a lot of people. That's why
Mr. Carrington, not to interrupt you, but I think the question specifically was about violent crimes. We're not talking about misdemeanors here. We're talking about felony assault.
If it's a violent crime and somebody's life was taken, or what they call is a Class X felony, then the person should be prosecuted.
All right, thank you.
Can I piggyback on that one? Because I did participated on the few of, restorative justice community court, meetings, and was learning, what they are doing there. First of all, the reason why kids are there who are between, 18 and 26 is, assumptions are your brain is still not formed. So there is still a chance like for you to change and to gain a new, habits. And how does it work that people who have been justice, involved, but who did not, commit very violent crime, they can participate in this program. And what is happening, they are given a set of, tasks, usually, related to pass some, grade, in a school, or, get a driver's license, or, something like that, with the whole goal to bring them back as useful and productive, citizens, in the fold of society. And also the part of that restorative justice court is a healing, circle. So it's not just that you are performing tasks, but they are taking care of you as a person, of your mental.
That's your time, Anna. Mr. Blissitt, I saw that your hand looked red hot. We'll go ahead and let you be the final one to answer on this. Hold on, I'll unmute you. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to definitely acknowledge the humanity of our community. I want to acknowledge those who have been doing the work, advocating for law enforcement, as well as public safety and issues related to fair court proceedings, probation, parole, incarceration across the board. Our community, we've been demanding public safety. We've been demanding accountability with prisoner reform for decades now. So it's not a question of whether or not we want folks locked up. We want justice within our community. We want crime police accordingly across the table, from the petty offender to the officer executing our youth in the streets. We want fair treatment related to public safety across the board. So I don't want us to deal in false narratives of our community not wanting criminals, locked up. We want reform and we want justice. We're not going to reduce it to petty policy. We want justice and we want true reform.
Thank you. I'm going to ask a couple questions because people have sent me some directly, and I want to make sure that
okay. One quick note.
More, Melanie?
Yeah, I have about 7 or 8 more, but I know that time might not permit all of them.
We're scheduled to 8:30, so it might.
Okay, so I want to defer to Michelle because she has a question and she has not yet had a chance to ask any of the questions.
Michelle, do you want me to ask the question that was sent to me, or?
Yes, please.
All right, I can.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
so it's
here's the
covered.
question. If you are in favor of cutting overtime for police officers, how do you expect the manpower to hold the line? Because we are short already. I'm going to start with Mr. Bryant.
So thank you for directing that question towards me. I think with cutting overtime, that is not something I've stated, but to address that matter, we need to allocate resources and funding. You have police officers that are burnt out. You can definitely talk to some of our officers. You can talk to retired officers of stating that overtime, it's not effective if officers are burnt out. So we need to create a better, more humane shift for officers to, while they work, whether that's in the office, whether that's on patrol. So with that won't necessarily prevent officers from dealing with matters of 911 calling them and there's incidents occurring. I think we have to provide violence prevention operators. They are out in the field as well throughout the night.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Carrington, same question.
I think because Chicago has a overtime problem, you have some officers who are, you can't eliminate the overtime. When a police officer get a call at 9 o'clock and he has to arrest somebody, he's on the 311 shift, by the way. So he gets a call at 9, he takes the person into custody, then he has to take them to the station and process them. Then he has to do the paperwork. So now it's going to be beyond his shift. So overtime kicked in because he's still in the process of doing his work. When you have a sergeant who base pay is $89,000, a sergeant, he's not a patrol officer now. A sergeant who basically can sit in the office at the district, pour down $250,000 in money I have a problem with that. That's taxpayer money. But if you have a patrol officer who out there and get a call right at the ending of his shift, and he has to go ahead and take the person into custody and go ahead and do the paperwork things, then I'm for that.
All right, that's your time. I'm going to ask Janice the same question about the overtime, and then we'll move on to another question.
All right, so when it comes to overtime, I don't believe that it should be eliminated or what have you. I do think, though, it is a concern if officers are tired and they can't do it. That's one thing, but I think I don't think that we should be cutting overtime at this time.
All right. Next question, Mr. Blissitt. I'm going to start with you with this one. What is your definition of police accountability?
Yeah, so, first and foremost, police accountability deals with addressing any issues of injustice related to the affairs of policing. The Constitution, as well as the Declaration of Independence, require us to resist tyranny. Boom. That's at the heart of this American experiment. We reject tyranny. We reject government-sanctioned abuse. This is what all of our great leaders have stood on, from Martin Luther King on back to Nat Turner. We reject government-sanctioned abuse from our government actors and players, period, point blank. That is at the heart of this American story. Police accountability also entails ensuring our officers have the adequate resources to perform at their best in the best interest of our community. This is related to accountability, in being accountable to the people. First and foremost, our community members, our voters, our taxpayers.
All right, that's your time. I'm going to ask Anna the same question.
Yeah, so I think that, consent decree covers, many of these, areas, but basically police should serve and protect us as, as it is, their job, and we should hold them accountable for any, misconduct which might involve, torture of the people, verbal or physical, abuse, profiling people, on the street, and stuff like that, right? So to ensure all of this, we need to follow very closely progress of, constant compliance of police department with consent decree, but we also need to follow up on how well police is serving us in our district. So we mentioned, response time in the third police district, which is the worst, in the, in the city, right? So we need to look at the data constantly, and we need to ask ourselves how we can do better and how police can do better.
Right, thank you. Janice, same question, and then we'll move on to a different question.
Okay, so I believe accountability is holding police officers and law enforcement agencies accountable for their actions and the performance of their duties. Simple, point and blank. Holding them accountable. What that looks like, that's what we need to strategize about to come up with the solutions to for that to play itself out. We need transparency at all components of law enforcement agencies, from when a call to service is made to the end of investigations. We need to have that open line of communication and be aware and know what's going on. And then we need community participations. We need to build up that trust so that so that accountability comes when we feel that we can trust the police to get the things done that we need done to see changes in our community. And we have to feel safe at every level. So we have to hold the police, the community, we have to hold people accountable.
All right, that's
for
your
their actions.
Next question. How can mounted or bike patrols be deployed through our communities with rapid response vehicle support to back them up so more efficient police presence can be seen in our communities? I'll start with Mr. Bryant.
Thank you for the question. I think that can help a lot when you have active police officers walking on bike patrol with building relationships. We would still have vehicles available for those immediate calls when the incidents are occurring. I'll take a look at South Shore, or I'll speak on South Shore. Like, they have their own security firm that's over on 71st that's circulating the neighborhood. I think that needs to occur with a lot of different neighborhoods in the 3rd district, of having their own security organizations. That way, it's very community oriented. It provides job opportunities for people who live in the neighborhood, who don't necessarily want to join Chicago Police Department, but they can still engage in public safety work.
All right. Same question, Mr. Carrington.
Well, what they call this patrol. Whether you patrol on the bike, whether you patrolling on the car. That is what's happening in the 3rd Police District and other districts throughout Chicago. The days of patrol officers is not what it was 10, 15, and 20 years ago. Officers now are called response officers. They're responding to a shot spot call or app or a call. We need to have officers out there on the street. I was on 66 in Minerva, and I went to 3 houses, and 3 residents who've been in that community for over 30 and 50 years shared that with me. And being a district council, you have to take the input from the residents and be able to take it to the station and implement these policies so the residents can feel safe and we can get this relationship going. It's called patrol. We need them back out there. If they're on the verge of being burnt out, we need to put them through a process of bringing them off the street, put them behind the desk so they can refresh themselves.
All right.
And then take somebody else and put them out there.
Thank you. Did any moderators have any further questions? I know, Melanie, you had a list.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let's see how quickly we can get through it. It says this person wants to know, what are the candidates' position on maintaining the MPI strategy of district coordination officers rather than the original community policing strategy?
All right. Candidates, I'm gonna add an extra 10 seconds for the first person so you can explain what NPI is. And who said, I think was Mr. Bryant, did you say you worked with NPI? Or was that Mr. Blissitt?
But we met recently with the Community Policing Initiative.
Go ahead and start, Jim, then you start.
Yeah, so I'm familiar with Maureen Perkins and the work she's done on behalf of 3 different districts. Anna and I have also met with a few other players in this approach, as well as Darlene Tribune around this issue. You know, Maureen mentioned that they're going to work towards rolling back a bit as a product of them being overwhelmed. I don't know if I should use that word, but taking on the responsibilities of 3 districts is a lot of work. So we extend ourselves as a support to the Community Policing Initiative as they roll back. Now, I can't speak too thoroughly about personal gripes or issues with organizations feeling, left out or out of consideration. But this is why we must continue to engage community organizations, those organizations established within the police department, those organizations established as a product of law and ordinance to support the work that's taking place. I'm not about recreating the wheel. You'll continuously hear me say, hey, let's look at what's happening at the Department of Family and Support Services to come in to supplement our officers. Let's relieve our officers as well as our educators of all of the work of social service and policy. But we will continue to engage. I'm not going to get into the drama of saying this person did too little or too much. I respect all
that's
of
your
them.
time, sir. All right, thank you. Same question, Janice Jones.
So my stand on that is that we need beat officers patrolling, be it on bicycles or in their cars or walking. I believe when the police are walking and they're on their bicycle, the chances of interacting and having conversations with the community is greater. I have heard community people say, you know, it's good if you just see them and you're walking by them and they just even wave, or they have something, you know, positive and nice to say to a child. The mere fact that they are on site is a deterrence against crime. So yes, I think we need to have our beat officers patrolling our communities, and it gives us, you know, beat integrity. Having these officers present, they get to know the families, they get to know the people that have these community health issues and who the leaders are and the big mamas are. And they're able to talk to these people, and everybody can solve crime and solution together. But our police officers need to be controlling our communities and our families. We need to know them and they need to know us.
All right, that's your time, Janice. Thank you. Melanie, do you have more questions?
I was just listening for some reference to the district coordination officers, the DCOs.
Okay.
In your response, and so as opposed to the original community policing strategy, which may have included beat officers as well as CAPS. So am I understanding this person's question? Because district coordination officers are the DCOs, which just recently began last year.
Okay, let's
So are we talking both and, or that we're out with the old and in with the new? Because
And then
beat
Anthony, I
officers
also have a, sorry, Melanie, we also have another question about the DCOs as well, to piggyback off of that before we get too far off that topic.
Yeah, why don't you go and add it in, Aaron, and then I'm going to defer it to Mr. Bryant.
Sure. So I actually have a little bit of a condensed question here because I got a few that were very similar in theme. Sorry, my son has decided to contribute to the conversation as usual. In the 3rd district, so this is kind of the condensed version of this. So in the 3rd district, we have district coordinating officers that are supposed to coordinate with the community and present an increased presence and response. This response is not felt during peak hours that community needs, like nights and weekends. What do you have to say to individuals in this district who desire an increased police presence to deal with quality of life issues and issues of violence? And some of the suggestions that came along with these questions that I've had to condense were bike patrols, as we've had mentioned already, police posts that they've seen in other countries, differing hours for DCOs, as well as changes in culture to the 3rd district to improve police retention. I know that was a mouthful, so Anthony, I will throw it away to you to see how much time they're going to need.
All right. Yeah, that was a big one. Mr. Bryant, I'm going to give you a minute and a half for that because that is a longer and more involved answer, I believe. Let me make sure I unmute you first. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question for me? Because I was still going to respond back to the DCOs and explain that.
Sure thing. So in the 3rd district, we have district coordinating officers, DCOs, that are supposed to coordinate with the community and present an increased presence and response. This response is not felt during peak hours of community needs like nights and weekends. What do you have to say to individuals in this district who desire an increased police presence to deal with quality of life issues and issues of violence? And some of the suggestions that were given along with the questions were included like bike patrols, police posts or stands to improve visibility, different hours for the DCOs, and changes to culture in the district to improve police retention.
I would like to say I agree with all those suggested solutions to call and response time. I also want to reiterate that the Chicago Neighborhood Policing Initiative has been a community-oriented process. So it's not a either or with CAPS, it's a both and to work with as well as with the local police district councils. As Jim has stated, I know they're looking to roll back as the police district councils come upon us and get acclimated into office, but it needs to be all three to address those matters of, you know, call and respond times at the height of moments. I think that do need to be a better initiative that's not only from the superintendent down, but also with the city of Chicago, you know, potentially setting up a department that way they can get access to complaints, you know, when it comes to residents calling and not being able to get service in a timely fashion. I've done some work over in the 4th Ward with some of our senior homes in getting their CAPS officers come to address some of these matters of people being robbed, people being held up at gunpoint. And I think we need to do that as well within the 3rd district of having our CAPS DCO as well as the local police district council candidates come and discuss how can we address those issues.
Can I respond to this question also?
Yeah, go ahead, Anna. I had you next. I didn't realize
And I
that.
would like to respond next, please. Thank
All
you.
right, Mr. Carrington. Let's go Anna and then Mr. Carrington.
So I believe that any, initiative by the police, which has the basis increasing trust between people and the police and, increasing their presence with that goal, right, is good. And I'm highly supportive, of that. But I also know that the solution to the problems we are facing when it comes to the safety cannot be solved by just having police on every corner of our district. That is simply not, sustainable. And again, me, and the data. So out of 300 biggest, cities here, in this country, Chicago has the most police per, capita, aside than Washington, DC. So there is that, information. Other thing I would like to add, I think that police is overly, militarized. They tend to feel like some force, scary, it's occupying, force. So something needs to be done about it. And also there is research that is making correlation between, militarization of the police, and the violence, right? So that is something that we need to look into. And we need to also apply, alternative solution, like a better, lighting on the streets, like a phone trees, block clubs to improve, networking, when it comes, to the public safety, amongst the people. So thank you.
I think Craig wanted to go next.
I'm waiting on you, Anthony, to say, Mr. Carrington, you next.
All right, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I muted myself and forgot. Oh, yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I have to say, listen, everybody, that I'm actually the one who got the experience. I did as a community organizer for St. Anthony Hospital with the 10th Police District. I would get the statistics: murders, burglaries, drug offense, carjackings. The 10th District Police was shared with us. I was a stakeholder. You got to have those stakeholders at that. And they would tell us what they was doing to address it. And not just tell us, they would ask us, the stakeholders, and some of them was from the community, what do they feel would be effective measures? Now let's get to the 10th District. When I mentioned what took place with my sister, that event came about hands across the community. Now we're in the 10th District now, that's on the 10th. The 3rd District, excuse me, hands across the community because a kid took a gun in Parkerville School, which is 1010 71st Street in the 3rd District. And so it was me, along with some of the other stakeholders, put this relationship together where we would have officers from the 3rd District would play basketball against Sam Binion and some Brian Leach and some of the other people who were stakeholders in the community in order to develop a better relationship. We would also have, at that time, his name was Commander Ernest Brown, high areas where there was a lot of traffic and volume going on, 73rd and Greenwood, would have a police patrol to go through them areas. So once I'm elected, I'm gonna be able to hit the ground running and moving because I have my pulse on the 3rd
Mr.
District.
Carrington, that's your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a question that has come up that I think is relevant. Let me interrupt. What powers does this position allow you? What decision-making power do you have? Can you make changes or are you advisory? I'm going to start with you, Mr. Bryant.
Yes, that's a good question. So a lot of the power that we have is galvanizing the community. So getting the community together for monthly community meetings, as well as expanding restorative justice practices. That's also deals with getting the community's input on policy and research. With that being said, we have to come up with creative ways to do so. So that's why me and my running mates had came up with creating a community task force. That way that empower residents to be a part of that research and understanding what that research and data is saying, and also getting their voice and their input on what that practice is. We've also discussed potentially getting retired officers from specifically the 3rd district to have a space for them to voice their concerns as well as their experience with working on the force. We also have, Jim stated earlier, we have the power to nominate the commissioners on the City Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. That meeting is occurring right now. That's actually why I'm here right now. With that, we decided to work with community organizations, to come up with that list of nominating members. And then also working with our public officials, working with our aldermen, working with our state reps, our state senators that cover the district, to talk about certain legislation. It's specifically on the city level when it comes to the Andrew Young ordinance.
All right, so I got a follow-up on that one, and we'll open up to everyone. So that was why we asked the original question about the federal consent decree, right? Because there are police policies that fall under the federal consent decree, and you guys will not be a federal agency. So exactly what policies, what procedures do you have, if any, power over changing with the Chicago Police Department when a good portion of it is under a federal mandate that you have no jurisdiction over? I'm gonna throw it to Jim, and then we'll come back to you, Anthony, in time.
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think the powers of not just this district council, but also that community commission for public safety. This question of what powers exist, this has been a point of contention throughout the entire creation of the ordinance, the actual implementation of the ordinance. And now we're still addressing this issue. We're all under the umbrella of the federal consent decree, right? We're hopeful that our superintendent, as well as our citywide municipal leaders, will continue to improve as it relates to implementing the consent decree. But as it relates to our power, we have the power to engage the community's voice, bring the community to the table. I think that's what's critical. And then connect community to the department's leadership, the police department, that is. Again, Commander Watson is very clear about his expectations. And I can appreciate the fact that Commander Watson does not want to create a militarized community, and I respect that. I can also respect the fact that Commander Watson is calling on our community organizations to supplement the work of the police department as they're responding to issues of crime. They need supports dealing with those individuals who have been victimized or the families of victims. We will step in to make sure organizations aren't only at the table, but also being considered for adequate funding. We will introduce the small grassroots organizations to the capacity development that is necessary. We'll also have a say in appointing those commissioners. Thank you, Anthony, for that.
All right,
and then there's powers at that level as well within advising the mayor around hiring and firing. There's still some points of contention there.
Okay, so Anna, this question is going to go to you. It sounds like, and I could be wrong, so correct me, that this will just be another level that's added to levels that already exist. And I'm specifically talking about 3rd district, because what we're known for is our community organizations that have heavily partnerships with the 3rd district police department. You don't see that too much in the other districts. So we already exist. We already have relationships with the commander, the lieutenants, the watch commanders. How does your intervention benefit this community when it just seems to be adding one more layer to a system that was already functioning?
Well, there is something, you know, on the city level that is not functioning since we have that, consent decree. So we should have not questioning. I think that point is proven. But another thing, while I do appreciate everything that third police districts, together we are doing, I would like to help them, expand their, community. Like I have been present on their meetings for the last 2-3 months, and I'm seeing maximum 50 people. We need more people. We need more people to have their say in what public safety means to them, what they need in that, regard. And I'm also not sure how much people who have been justice, involved are, invited, welcome, or just feeling comfortable to be part of those conversations, right? So the work that we are doing, the meetings that we will be conducting, I think they will be more welcoming and more, empathetic and more trusting than just meeting with the police, into whom already, people of the third police district don't have so much trust in. I know it personally because I, collected signatures for my, petition, and out of 1,000 I collected, 80% of them do not have trust in the police. So we need to hear all of those people who would not otherwise show up, to the third police district, together we can. Simply that.
That's your time. Thank you. Janice Jones, same question. Yeah, should be unmuted.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
All right, so a couple of things. So to this point, to this point, as a district council member, I believe that we can level the playing field. To the question, yes, we are making some strides, and we are, the third district is doing some really, really good things, right? And so when I say level the playing fields, we need to level the playing fields in the sense that everybody has a role and a part in this. Everybody plays a role. Nobody's left behind. Our youth, their parents, families, we all need to come together and to make the resources robust and to be held accountable. If we're going to hold them accountable, then we have to be accountable to get these changes that we want to see in the community. Number one, I want to go back to when you were talking about the beat officers. Beat officers, from my understanding, beat officers and the DCOs and CAPS are all three very different entities. We need beat officers on the street. These are the individuals that are, ride their bikes, in their cars, whatever, walking the beats. These are the individuals that need to know community, and the community needs to know them. When it comes to the DCOs, yeah, great group, right? And we can strategize on how they could play a role in that, but we need beat officers assigned to our beat, to our streets.
That's your time. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. It's all right. I'm gonna move to the next questions.
I was going to say I would like
Go
to
ahead,
speak for that. So this commission, this local police district council came from the community as well as the commission. So you have that department and you have these offices. So you have people, residents, who are not politicians that's running for office. This takes that work that CAPS is doing. This takes the work that all the people are doing it, and it put it into the community. So that's why this role is significant, because as Janice and Anna has stated, there's been a lack of community at the decision-making table. So that's why we're running to empower our community into having a say-so and making sure that, these different departments that are supposed to hold police accountable are transparent with the information they're getting, as well as they're working in a timely fashion. So that's why this office is crucial, to have people who have been doing the work about police accountability, who has been doing the work with galvanizing their community within these roles, and actually know what the tasks and responsibilities are, but also can push more creative ways to address issues of public safety and policing in our communities.
All right. So a follow-up question. from the audience, and I'm going to add a little bit to it. Just what would be your relationship with the current District Advisory Council? Other people will know that as the DAC, and the volunteers who currently work actively that support the 3rd District. And I want to add to that, where will the CAPS office play a role in this council? And I'll start with Mr. Blissitt, and then we'll go with Mr. Carrington.
Yeah, I'll continue to coordinate, again, through the Together We Can cause. I will commit to more action with TWC. Prior to being on the Together We Can cause, I participated in the Harris Park beat meetings before COVID for a number of months and years. But again, we must have the DAC at the table, all of the representatives. We must engage the actors doing the work. Anthony, you mentioned that that community commission piece. We can't forget that. Whether we like it or not, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability is in place. This department alone is directly connected to the affairs of that office. Unlike any other community organizations, any other council withstanding to be stood up, we will work in conjunction with that commission, starting with appointing the 7 individuals to that body. We've committed to working with the community members in selecting and nominating the individuals to represent the 3rd Police District, not just the 3rd, but the city at large. So we will engage the DAC. We will engage. I got a message from Maureen here. They're going to roll back, but they're not leaving. We will engage them. We will engage Park Manor Neighbors Association. We will engage the Community Alliance over in South Shore. We'll be participating in that forum on Saturday. As we make this selection, I can't stress it enough. This is our probably only power, aside from the $500 stipend and the legal requirement to work 20 hours a week. This job requires way more than 20 hours a month.
Right.
I'm sorry, 20 hours a month. So again, we will take into consideration community orgs and leaders as we appoint those individuals to the commission.
All right, thank you. Mr. Carrington, same question.
I'm ready.
We can hear you. Same question, sir.
Okay. Well, I have worked with these organizations, being a resident in the 3rd District, past, present, and now as a community organizer. I worked with CAPS in the beginning at its inception. So I know how CAPS operate. All these organizations are stakeholders. We need to meet with them so now they can know our role. Our role is much more than what is being said. We have to take input from the residents. Like the residents told me, they want to see more patrol on Minerva, 66 and Minerva. We have to take that input and bring it to the district, as well as to the sitting commissioners will be there. We have to be.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you gotta unmute yourself, Craig.
Yeah, we lost you, Craig.
Val made a great comment in the questions about us being supportive more so than taking the lead. I can't stress this enough. This isn't about anyone taking the lead. It's about connecting and supporting those doing the work. That's at the heart of the Empowering Communities for Public Safety Ordinance. And the organizations who fought for this ordinance are first and foremost interested in empowering our community organizations. That is what we intend to do, myself, Anthony, and Anna. We will work with, in conjunction with, and supplement to those of you already doing the work.
And
All
it looks like
This
and
is
I didn't
gonna-
get a chance to
no,
finish. Something
Mr.
happened.
Carrington's back. Yeah, go ahead, sir. Hold on. Let me
Okay.
give you some time on the clock and go ahead.
Well, as I said, I'm not going to be the new person coming in trying to coordinate all these things. I have already been coordinated. I coordinated from the restorative justice. I coordinated from being a resident in the area. I know about the district advisory boards and things. A lot of these people don't know about our role. Some of them feel a little intimidated because we're being elected to this. We would be the ambassadors for the residents in the community. We would have to bring restorative justice. Restorative justice is the new way of handling people who have got criminal records, and they don't need to be at 26 in California. They don't need to be at 111. So we have to be able to bring these programs there, and we have to have somebody who knows how to do it and know where the money gonna come. You can have these grandiose.
All right, that's your time, sir.
But if you don't have the money, the residents still are going to be suffering economically. That's what's hurting these communities.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carrington.
Thank you for your time.
All right, this will be the final question, and I want to give you guys some time to, do a little outro speak. The last question is, are you in favor of the Community Commission on Public Safety replacing the police board? Anna. And I'm gonna give you
Placing the police board, I don't think it is structured like that. Community Commission for Public Safety and accountability has a power to hire and fire a board, police board, members, as well as superintendents. So the idea is not about taking somebody's roles. The idea is to doing accountability, right? And transparency. So that is what we are talking about here.
All right, thank you. And I'm only giving you guys 30 seconds on this one, so we have time for your outros. Janice Jones, same question.
Could you repeat the question, please?
The question is, are you in favor of the Community Commission on Public Safety replacing the police board?
Yeah, I think that's two separate entities, and I'm not sure if that's possible now, but that is definitely something that we can look into, but I don't believe that that's possible. So I have to say no at this time.
All right, thank you. Mr. Bryant. Oh, sorry. Okay. All right.
You're all good. That's not the goal of the City Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. They'll be working with COPA, with the police board, as well as the superintendent and the local police district councils. So if you have not been able as a candidate to connect with Damian, who is the chief of staff for the commission, to understand what the local police district council roles and tasks and how this will work, I would definitely suggest that you do so as candidates, because you need to know this work.
All right, thank you. I'm gonna have that be the end. I want to give each one of you 1 minute to, do your outro spiel. Why should somebody vote for you? And we'll start with you, Mr. Carrington.
My name is Craig T. Carrington. My family came into the district when it was going through the flight, when it was changing from Jewish and Irish. My aunt, who has a birthday tomorrow, was classmates of Emmett Till. My father and my uncle protest with Martin Luther King. So that lets you know the tenure I have. That's why I stayed in the district. Also, while I'm running for this office, I have a personal stake in this. Now, my sister Corrine has since passed on, but when they did that to Anthony, Randy, and Sherelle, mistaking her for a little boy, knocked Anthony out 90 pounds, sprayed Randy in his face, and slammed my sister up against the car when she came to acquire. Now I have a relation. That day that happened in 2004, September 16, I put that event together called Hands Across the Community.
All right, so that's your time. Thank you.
That is the reason why I'm running for this office, is so that would never happen again, and also to build better relationships.
Thank you, Mr. Carrington. That's your time. Thank you.
you.
All right, Anna, you're next.
Okay, well, I must say I firmly believe that we have the power to transform our communities if our policies, intentionally and deliberately, uplift the health and the well-being of those who have the least, right? Carceral solution only, exacerbate those, issues and increase the number of, negative, interactions between civilians and the police. I think it is prime time to fully fund and support community-led solutions to, address the root causes of trauma and gun violence. We know that we cannot police our way to public safety. And in my opinion, public safety is not, either or choice between the law, enforcement and, addressing the root causes of violence. We must do both. We need better policing, including shorter, response time for, example, but we also need
thank
to
you,
greater
Anna. That's your time.
transparency when it comes to staffing, and budget,
All right, Mr. Blissitt, you are up next.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, everyone, for having not just me, but Anthony, Anna, Janice, Craig. Thank you for having us and allowing us to engage you all around the most important issue of public safety. I will consider public safety way more broader than just looking at police and blaming police officers for the failure of our municipal process. I think that's most critical at this juncture. I will advocate for our communities, for the boys on 69th and Anthony, 71st and King Drive, all the way to 72nd and South Shore. I will advocate for our youth, our young ladies who do not feel safe in school buildings and playgrounds on the concrete. I will advocate for us. I will never take credit for the work. I will never say I was the first to do anything. We must have a level of humility as we approach this work. It is clear that our community wants someone who will collaborate and empower, not take credit for work that's been happening for generations. So I'm calling it out. None of us are more important than the work that's happened prior
All
to
right.
us. None of us
Sir.
are more equipped with more or less experience. We're all putting in work. So thank you, Anthony. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to the Together We Can cause. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Janice, you're up next.
All right, so I like to say that our community needs us, right? And we need to have trusting relationships with the police to get the changes, to get the reforms that we want to see in our community. There's just no way around that. So we have to have the mindset that we're going to come together, we're going to figure out who's doing what, and we're going to have people to provide resources that they are already providing. We just want to add the support to that. We want to get the funding that we need. See, I've been here my whole life doing this in South Shore, right? I've been connecting across the district with community organizations to get the changes that we want to see in our community. It's important to me. It's important for us to work together. It's important for us to not only identify the resources here and help those resources to become more robust, but if we don't have the resources and we have
Janice,
other state, other levels, then we need to be able to do that. And so a vote for me will get you a seat at the table and a voice.
All right, thank you, Janice.
Thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. Sorry.
It's all right. Mr. Bryant, you're up.
Thank you, Anthony. Yes, my name is Anthony David Bryant. I'm running for office to have our community at the decision-making table. And that's why I think that you all, as residents of the 3rd District, which wards encompass the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 20th, should vote for me, Jim, and Anna, because we have been doing the work together. We have been collaborating and communicating about and strategizing on ways to address public safety issues as well as police accountability. We also covered different areas. So I live in Woodlawn, Jim live in Park Manor, Anna live in South Shore. We have been working with organizations in those respective neighborhoods and bringing them at that decision-making table to make sure that they understand what ECPS is, understanding what their role is, and how can the local police district councils work. I think it's crucial that we get people who are community-oriented, who know how to work together and know what they're talking about.
All right. Thank you. I want to thank all the candidates for showing up and giving us your time. Carrington, Sokovic, Blissitt, Jones, and Bryant. We all greatly appreciate it. I also want to thank my moderators who couldn't have done this without them. We got Aaron, Melanie, Missy, Candace, and Michelle. I also want to thank Brad Redrick and Alicia Spears. We're all part of the 20th Sector group. And it was their gracious offering to let us do this at this time. I want to point out that these candidates will be, again, let me read this off. You guys are going to be January 28th at St. Luke's Church, 7262 South Coles, from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. The 3rd district candidates will be there from 10 to 11, and the 4th district candidates will be there from 11 to 12. If anybody else needs anything, feel free to send any of us an email. I'll put my email in the chat if you need this flyer or any of that stuff. And again, thanks everybody for attending and your patience and for all your questions. We could not do this without you. And I hope it was satisfying.
And then Anthony, you got a supporter.
I see that. The last thing I need to be as a politician, I can't watch my mouth. All right. All right. Emails in the chat. You can send it there. I'll see if I can stick the flyer for their event also in the chat. We'll see if that works. So everybody can have it. And this should be a thing where we ask more questions. I think these folks have a lot. All right, there it is. It's in there for those that may need it. All right, and that's going to conclude our meeting. I will be throwing this up on the Voters Engagement YouTube channel within the next couple of days. I'm definitely not going to do it tonight because I'm tired. So good night, everybody, and see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Good night.
Anthony, see you.
See
See
you.
you all.
I have to stop recording. Boom. Should you